Leo 25, a large camel crossing the desert. The camel is plodding and persevering and enduring and carrying a burden and going without comforts for a very long time. It's a symbol of the stoic ability we have to cope, and to cope when it's not easy to cope. To take ourselves to the extremes of being able to put up with things and nevertheless break through. This is an important spiritual principle. Life is hard. We're not always walking through deserts, and we may not be somebody who very often takes on burdens of harshness and difficulty in our lives. But all of us at some point will find some exercise needs to be carried out that requires more than we've ever given before. More patience, more tolerance, more endurance, more putting up with something we really don't like, we're not comfortable with, it gives us not a lot of pleasure. We have to do it though. This is because we have taken on a commitment to do it, or because without doing it we're in deeper trouble than we're in already, or something like that. But these occasions do arise, and we have to approach them with a certain spiritual attitude. But that spiritual attitude is more camel-like than monk-like in this case. Now, another factor of Leo 25, this camel, is the factor of independence. The camel doesn't really need water for a long time or food. It can go on and on and on with nothing. And therefore it makes the camel independent of external forces. If we translate that into our own lives, if we actually find a way to be independent of, first of all, of our mother, and then our family, and then we perhaps get a qualification which makes us independent of a particular employer, because we can change our jobs more easily with this ticket of excellence. If we kind of build up a style, a way of life, so that in any situation, okay, that's what we desire, we want that, but we don't need it. That's very helpful, because when we need something, we do compromise our integrity, invariably. We bend our own arguments. We think of things that were once policies that anchor our personal integrity into given behaviors that can be trusted. When we need something, those policies become compromised into expediency. We do what we actually find comfortable instead of what we actually find right. Also, when we're dependent upon someone else, we're muted. You think how expressive you are to your boss. Do you allow your boss to see all of your rich and colourful personality? I doubt it. We're muted in the presence of somebody upon whom we depend. We corrupt our integrity. We're not who we are. We're not authentic. When we're dependent, we're not authentic. And this is a serious problem for a spiritual seeker. We have to live in truth. There is no spiritual unfoldment other than truth. It cannot happen. And to be free of dependency upon another makes us much likelier to pursue our own agenda. Now, it's unfortunate for children that their mother does too much for them, typically. Of course, there are many exceptions, but as a general rule, a child is spoiled, not weaned of the mother's first milk, then attention, and then service. And the child grows up to be unable to do certain household tasks like cooking and cleaning and ironing and those kind of things, until they perhaps leave home and have a need. I suppose this is more exaggerated in the case of a man than a woman, but nevertheless the principle applies. When parents are not really sufficiently able or enlightened to know that their children need training, then the children grow up with a dependency. And that dependency robs them of their own power. It's then taken into relationships. So if you don't cook yourself and you want your partner to be able to cook, then that will warp your sense of whether or not this is going to be a suitable partnership. The freer you are to do your own thing, to be unbeholden, if that's a word, to someone else, the more likely it is that you're going to have your own strength, your own power, and from that position you can relate to someone else genuinely. Now we take that idea a little bit further and we can apply it to a spiritual teaching. By and large, people believe in what they were taught before they could think. You probably believed in Santa Claus before the age of 5 because you were told stories of Santa Claus. And those stories were told very similarly to stories of Jesus Christ and so on. It must be very hard for a child to kind of see the difference between those two archetypes. And then later you're told that Santa Claus doesn't exist, but Jesus Christ does. Where's the proof? Well, there is none. We need to have faith to believe in Jesus Christ. Well, what's the difference between Santa and Jesus? It's very confusing for the child. And then the child kind of grows up and learns that the government is good. You can trust the government. This is the enemy. This is our friend. We're told all of this stuff in childhood by parents that don't really understand the significance of having implanted these false ideas in the mind of a child. If you can manage to pull yourself away from all of that, question everything that you believe in, reinvent the wheel for yourself. Is God love? I was told that God is love. But I'm a mathematician. I went to study logic. If God is love, then love is God. We cannot have one without the other. There's an equivalence between them. What about truth? Is God truth? Then truth is God. Does that mean that a bad person cannot tell the truth? That a bad person cannot love? That anyone who is loving is in the presence of God? Is that what it means? And I went through this real analysis of all of these spiritual principles to try and find out what actually holds water. Because for sure, most of the religions that I was shown don't hold water. The literal truth of all of the scriptures, every scripture ever written, is not literally true, in my opinion. This means that we have to interpret metaphor. This necessarily means that we're going to differ. Our interpretations will be different because it's not specific. It's not written down specifically. So if you actually want to take this idea of the independence of the camel, the ability to plod and further until you find your destination, and you apply that to your spiritual life, you have to work it out for yourself, knowing full well that nobody will ever agree with you 100%. They may not disagree about much, and it may be that the differences are not considered very important, but they will disagree on something or other. So each of us has to come up with our own ideas, our own philosophies, our own sense of what God is, what spirituality is, what goodness is. We have to do that for ourselves. We have to be independent of our teachings. The spiritual teachings that we received earlier in life are opinions, and maybe you want to agree with those opinions, but I'm offering you the idea that you get a chance to disagree as long as you're independent. But as soon as that independence is gone, your chance of being able to find your own way with life and your own way with spirit is compromised.